Okay, this is like my 100th take of this video, but I'm gonna power through this one because it's like 10 o'clock. I need to go to sleep. Joking. I'm Naz, and I've been putting off doing YouTube videos for a long time now because I just find it a bit weird just, talking to a screen. I don't know, it seems a bit weird, but I'm gonna do it. And this channel is gonna be about kind of like behind the scenes footage of what it's like to be a visually impaired person, and maybe more specifically a visually impaired musician as well. I guess this will be relevant to people who are going through sight loss, and to musicians, or to musicians who are going through sight loss. This specific video is about kind of like how it all started. Like, basically I've got a condition called rod cone dystrophy. It's a genetic recessive condition. A cone dystrophy is an inherited ocular disorder characterised by the loss of cone cells, the photoreceptors responsible for both central and colour vision. And I don't know what any of that means. I'm just going to explain it in my own English words. Rod cone dystrophy. Night blindness, colour blindness, poor depth perception, poor peripheral vision, poor central vision, and sensitivity to light, to sum it up. First of all, my night blindness started when I was really young. Like, I've always had night blindness, and by night blindness I mean I can see lights, outlines of people, like silhouettes, like not actually any detail. I can't see any detail at night. Very vague. If it's a really bright area, if there's loads and loads of lights, like I could see like people and I could see shops and stuff. Because of my poor depth perception, I can't see detail very well. That detail meaning I can't see going down steps if it's not cut with a different colour. It basically looks like a slope to me. People's faces, I'm not good with that either, as in their facial features just mould into each other, or it's just a blank canvas, which is really scary. Well, I'm sort of used to it, but it's still a bit, puts me on edge, because it gets harder to communicate with people if I can't really see their face very well, especially because of my poor central vision. If I'm looking at someone, I can't see anything from their neck down below if I'm looking at their face, because it's just a blur. And if they're doing like gestures, like imagine not being able to see their face properly, not being able to see their hands properly, and it's just strictly relying on their voice, like the tone of their voice, how they sound, what they're saying. Like, I have to pay like extra detail to that, and it's really exhausting because I'm having to work kind of harder to do that. It's not like second nature, it's not like a reflex, it's pure like concentration. It's not easy. Like, communicating with people, it's even that is just, that in itself is so, it can be so horrible sometimes, especially in venues. I said I was a musician. I front a trip-hop doom band called Hava, and we gig a lot, and it's really hard in venues when people come up to me and talk to me, and I'm just like, oh, who are you? I mean, some people get offended, but I don't remember who they are, but I literally just, I can't see them. If you squint your eyes in a pub, in a venue, like, you can see the band that's playing vaguely, like with a little detail. There's people around you, like the venue's packed, everyone's talking, there's loud music, like people just walking around everywhere. It's really scary. Like, there's been many times where I've had panic attacks because of it, because it's too much for me, like, because I feel so scared that sometimes I don't feel safe, because if I'm left on my own, I'm just like, I don't know where to go now. Where's the toilet? How do I get to the toilet? How do I get backstage? How do I get on the stage? How do I set up my stuff on stage? It's just, I have to think about these things. Central vision really affects me, the loss of it. It's like a dark patch. The poor peripheral vision has affected me a lot, in terms of I've nearly been hit by like bikes and cars so many times. I got hit by a car when I was 11 because of that reason, because I couldn't see the car that was coming. Colour blindness, light sensitivity, so if I'm outside I have to wear sunglasses. Even sometimes the glare can really hurt my eyes. The biggest kind of thing that's really stuck with me and really affected me related to my sight loss is so when I was 11, I went to hospital and got my eyes tested. Every time I get my eyes tested, it's really horrible. Like the eye drops, they really hurt your eyes. The lights, they flash in your eyes. That's painful. And then they have to take like images of your eyes, and sometimes like I think it's called a field test, where they kind of attach metal things in your like eye socket, like inside there, connects up to a machine that kind of looks at the back of your eye. I used to like panic every time, but now I'm just like, oh, I'll just get it over and done with. So when I went to the hospital when I was 11, I got told by a professor there, after I had all my tests done, what happens is you go into the room with the main doctor, I think, or the professor or whoever. They kind of talk you through what's happened and if you've lost like any sight, and kind of like a review of everything that's happened on the day and the past year by looking at the scan. And this one time, so I was 11, sat in the room. I remember it's me, my dad, and my dad's friend. The professor just looked at me and he was like, "You will go blind when you're 25." I can't explain enough like how surreal it is that one sentence can just shape my life. I remember running outside, and the door behind me, started screaming, crying, and then before I knew it, I was in a room with loads of like professionals talking about the next steps of what was going to happen, learning Braille, like support that would be in place for me, and everything was just, you know, when things just get on top of each other, it's just really hard, and I just exploded. Like I was just like, this is not happening. And they sent a letter to me 4 months later, and they said, sorry, it was a misunderstanding, it's a full statement. And I'm not sure if they said that because of my reaction, of how upset I got. They're not allowed to say that to, the professor was not meant to say that to me, because it's really unprofessional and it's a really old-fashioned way to approach it. He didn't have any right to say that, and with my condition, like, no one knows when or if I will lose all my sight, because that, in the condition itself, like it just varies from person to person. I could be 60 years old and still have the sight I have now. I could be 15 years old and be completely blind. Like, it honestly just varies. Like, your retinas work very differently to someone else's retina that works like even with the same condition. Yeah, so that happened. And I guess after the letter of the full statement, I kind of felt a bit better and I kind of forgot about it. But I did get diagnosed with depression when I was 13. I started taking antidepressants then, and I guess maybe that rooted from that statement. I'm not quite sure. I can't really remember. I was 18 when I got diagnosed with anxiety, and honestly, like, I think anxiety is the worst illness that I have. Like, I can't even explain it right now because I'd have to do a whole video about it. My anxiety started when I was 18, like really severe panic attacks. I was getting sleep paralysis, and I was living away from home at that point, but I had to move back home because my mental health got so bad that I just couldn't function, like without my mum looking after me, without my parents looking after me. And that was when I was 18. I moved back for about 6 months, then I moved out again, and I've been living here for 2 years by myself. I live by myself because I want to push myself to be independent. I don't want to feel like I'm burdening someone else to look after me or help me. It's to do with my sight. Like, I don't want to feel like, well, I want to feel like I can do everything by myself, but sometimes, like, you do need to ask for help, and I've learned that you can't do everything by yourself, and it's just, I don't know, it's been a nice experience living by myself, but it's a bit intense. Like, it's a bit scary, like being with your own kind of thoughts, like every single day, like so long. Yeah, so when my anxiety kicked in, I moved back home, had more time to focus on my health. I was in my first year of university then as well. 18 is when my sight started getting worse as well. So there's a link between my anxiety starting and my sight getting worse. They happened around the same time, 2.5 years ago. Yeah, 2.5 years ago now. There would be times I was too scared to go outside. Small things that changed were like being able to walk around fine during the day to having to use a symbol cane. This thing, it's to highlight a visual impairment. You just hold it out in front of you like this, and so people can be aware that there's something wrong with your eyes, and if you bump into them, if I bumped into someone, it's more obvious that I'm visually impaired than, you know, drunk or something. Yeah, people think that sometimes. So I went from writing in pencil and pen to having to write in like bold pen. So I have to write in these bold, sharpy, smelly things, and like my writing is, I don't know if you can see that, but really big, and otherwise I can't read it. I can't read letters. I can't like read books anymore, and it's basically like going through grief, I guess. Like there's a whole in denial phase, there's a accepting it, and the next, like, you know, coming to terms with it, like the hurt, the pain, the loss, everything. It's really hard adapting to change. Like I went from being able to see during the day, being able to read books, like really thick books, being able to read letters, fill out forms, read price tags, read bus timetables, signs, everything. I went from that to not being able to do any of those things because my sight deteriorated so rapidly. Like at the time it was really, really hard to adapt to and kind of accept it because it was such a drastic change. I had to learn how to write again, how to read again, even how to walk again. I had to start fresh, and I had to do that the hard way, I guess. Like when you think of starting fresh, like you kind of think, you know, you start fresh on a new page, but mine was like a new start plus I had to learn how to do everything over again. So when I get letters through, and if I have to read books, like for uni, like my coursework and stuff, I have software on my tablet called Prodigy. It takes pictures of books and letters and stuff, and it kind of transfers the information from the paper or the letter or the book to a format where I can see it, which is like inverted colours, really bold, and if I tap like 2 times on it, it reads it out for me. So basically I have to take pictures of everything, like all the pages of a book, to be able to read it. I might be able to show you how I do that actually. Maybe not right now, but in another video I'll show you how I read books and how I read letters if you really want to see that. I guess the hardest part was I mean, it's all hard really, like hearing that statement, you'll go blind at 25, losing my sight rapidly at 18, having night blindness like all my life, missing out on like so much. Like my friends would like go out all the time, and like I don't know, I've never really liked going out, but like even like performing on stage, that's really hard. In venues I can't see anyone, anything, like all I see is lights. It's really hard to even like walk around, so I can't like find the toilet sometimes, or I have to ask for help to get to the toilet. I have to ask someone to walk me down the stairs, up the stairs. In venues, if it's really dark, which they mostly are, they're not very visually impaired friendly. Not all of them are very accessible. There's like 2 in Brighton that I've been to that are quite accessible. Having to ask for help so much can really throw me back sometimes, because there was a point where I'd hate asking for help because I felt like I was burdening other people. Sometimes, you know, sometimes that is the case, like I'm burdening people by asking for help, but sometimes like mostly people are willing to help. I've had loads of times where people have like said, no, I'm not going to help you. It's really heartbreaking. If I had no other choice, I wouldn't ask you for help. So I guess the lack of understanding for it really does upset me sometimes. But I changed my thinking around everything, like all the negative thinking, and like normally like people are like, oh my god, how do you do what you do and be so positive and strong at the same time? You're losing your sight like slowly. How are you so positive? The answer to that is I have to be. This is my reality, and like everyone has something. I would not say anyone in this world is just 100% satisfied with their life, 100% healthy. There's going to be something. Everyone's got problems. I can't dwell on mine forever if I can't change it. Well, I can't help feeling like hopeless and stuff sometimes, but what I did was I researched people who shared similar conditions to mine. If they could do well in life, then I could do well in life despite their condition. And these were people that had it so much worse than me, that had no sight nearly, only had light perception. Motivational speakers specifically. There's a YouTuber called Molly Burke who has retinitis pigmentosa, a condition that's similar to mine, I guess. But she lost most of her sight when she was 14. Now she kind of goes around educating people, like she does motivational speaking, does so many things. She does loads of YouTube videos, what it's like to lose sight and just like how she uses technology, everything. Like she collaborates with YouTubers, she does so many amazing things. She's a massive inspiration to me. Got me into motivational speaking. I'll link my first motivational speech down in the description box. The other person who got me into motivational speaking is, I think he's a motivational speaker called Miles Hilton. He lost his sight completely at 20 from the same condition as Molly Burke. He kind of talks about how he wanted to be a pilot, and then he talks about how the only limitations you have is the ones that you create yourselves. And I was like, hang on a sec, like, he can't be a pilot, like, what is he talking about? There's footage of him flying a plane, and he did that completely blind, and it made me cry because I was just like, oh my god, if he can do that, I can absolutely do anything. I need to change my thinking. This was about 2 years ago. I started my blog called In My Eyes, which is a platform where people can share their stories. I've featured so many people's stories on there, from all sorts of different illnesses, from OCD, ME, visual impairment, anxiety, depression, CRPS, so many different illnesses. That all stemmed from my passion for wanting to educate people on illnesses, on misconceptions, everything to do with invisible illnesses. Like, I don't want people to feel like how I did with anxiety, depression, even suicidal thoughts, self-harm. I don't want people to feel like how I did, because it's a very dark place, and sometimes without the right support, the right network and the right team, sometimes you can't pick yourself up. And I just want to show that it's possible to achieve your dreams no matter what your limitations are. I mean, there's so many examples like Ray Charles, Stevie Wonder, even like Stephen Hawking. Like, you're more than capable of doing anything. I'm more than capable of doing anything that I want to do if I set my mind to it, even though it may be harder to do what I want to do, harder than someone who isn't going through sight loss. But if I set my mind to it, then nothing should stop me. Like, it's my own mind that's stopping me at the end of the day. Before, like a couple of years ago, like I was so kind of hopeless, like I just didn't really know what to do. Anything was really worth it, like, because I was like, well, I'm going to be blind at 25 anyway, so what's the point? But now I'm just like, hang on a second, if there's evidence of other people achieving dreams that I dream of, I can do anything, and I will educate people. I will share my story to influence others to speak up, because suffering in silence it shouldn't even be an option. Like, it's not. Like, there's so much support out there, like now that everyone's talking about, mental illness, and there's so many resources, so many people to help you. Sharing my story has influenced a lot of people, and it's so nice to to hear such like lovely comments from people saying that like I've changed their perception on things, I've helped them accept their condition, like help them understand that it's a part of who they are, and yeah, I just want to say that anything is possible. And although my sight loss is a huge part of my life, it shouldn't be something that will stop me from doing what I want to do. And don't get me wrong, like I'm not all like, oh, I'm so happy, I'm so positive. Like I have days where I don't want to go outside, I don't want to get out of bed, I don't want to do anything because my heart is racing so much from anxiety, from depression. I just can't bring myself to do anything, to eat, to walk outside, like down the road just for a walk, like on the seafront. I have bad days, I have good days, and I find that like we're just human beings, and it's okay to feel like that. And how I channel my bad days is into songwriting. It's just finding something that works for you. Don't get me wrong, like it's hard, it's so hard living with invisible illnesses. The stress has caused me to also have IBS as well, irritable bowel syndrome, which is basically like a problem in your digestive system. Since last May, I've been struggling with stomach cramps a lot, like to a point where I can't walk sometimes. It's horrible. Another thing, I struggle with communication and travel. A 20-minute journey can take me an hour just to get to lesson. That consists of me walking outside my door, going through so many obstacles, bumping into people, not being able to see the traffic light because it's too bright outside to see the LED, like the LED as in the green man and the red man. You know what I mean, right? On the traffic light, like to cross, it has to be green. Then going to the bus stop, and then like my phone isn't always accurate to tell me where the bus stop is and what time it comes. I'm always having to ask people like, what does it say on the bus timetable, because I can't read them. Eventually, if I get to my lesson, it's like another mission for me. If I'm in a class of like 200 people, I'm in a class with silhouettes. Like I can't see anyone because either it's too dark in the room, or even if it's not, like if someone isn't sitting right next to me, then I really don't know who they are. The only thing that will lead me to figure out who someone is by their voice, because everyone's voice is actually really distinctive. That's how I recognise people most of the time. Other than that, it's just, you know, I can't see the PowerPoints in classes, the whiteboard, or the, like, I can't read anything. It's just me, myself, and I, and my overthinking brain just sitting there in the lesson. It's really hard being visually impaired. This world isn't made for visually impaired people. Going back to venues, like being a musician, that's hard in itself. Like being a musician, it's tough. I think people underestimate how hard it is to be a musician, like in general. Then there's being visually impaired and being a musician. To sum it up, everything is so overwhelming all the time. I have to take a lot of breaks out of what I do. My mind won't take on all the information that it needs to take on. It's not because I'm lazy. I have to learn in different ways to people who learn by, you know, visually, which is, I'm a visual learner. Being thrown like information at you all the time. I'm in my last year of degree now, so I'm getting there. But it's been a very hard journey. Another big thing is like having to explain yourself all the time. It's tiring, it's really exhausting. Now that I use my symbol cane during the day and at night, it's less exhausting because people, I mean, even if they don't know what it is, they just kind of move out the way because it's, you know, it's a girl with a stick, like, probably think I'm gonna hit them or something. But it's a blind cane, not a hitting cane. Yeah, and it has actually really helped me. Like I can't leave my flat without it. I used to be so terrified to use it, and now I can't leave my flat without it because it helps me so much. So to anyone who's taken a step forward in like using support aids to help with your illness, whether that's, you know, a wheelchair, you know, crutches, a cane, a hearing aid, anything, like you really need to try to take that step forward, and it's the worst thing, I know, like it's the hardest thing, like taking steps forward, but it's a part of the illness, I guess. And in the long run, these support aids will help you. If you try using them for like a few days, you'll see the difference that it makes. I feel like not enough people use these support aids who need them, because we're too wired to think too much about what society thinks and what other people around you think. But honestly, this is your world. If it's going to help you, do what's best for you. Trust me, in the long run, that's the best thing you can do. And I guess I will finish this off by saying thank you for listening. If you've reached up to the end of this video, please comment like what you think of like everything that I've said, any topics that's like flagged up. If you're going through sight loss, like tell me your story. Please do check out my blog. I'll link it down below. It's called In My Eyes. Oh, and please subscribe. And yeah, more vlogs and stuff to come. Yeah, see you next time, person on the other side of the screen.